Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I don't know about you, but I love me some special effects in movies. Thanks to computer wizardry, I was able to believe in the flying DeLorean from Back to the Future, that entire space fleets duked it out in Star Wars, and practical visual effects helped elevate John Carpenter's The Thing to be one of my favourite movies ever made. However, that doesn't mean that there haven't been some egregious errors made when it comes to casting the spell of suspended disbelief on audiences, as the entries on this list appear to have been released with massive oversights which really shouldn't have happened seeing how long these shots took to produce. I'm Jules from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 major VFX errors you won't believe were missed. Oh, and by the way, before I begin, yes, some of these are truly nitpicky and you might not even notice them on a casual viewing, but be warned, for after watching this list, you will never be able to unsee them. Oh, and also one more side note, some of these examples have been found and documented on other YouTube channels, and we are in no way claiming that we came up with these ourselves. And any relevant links will be put by the editor down below in the description or on the video itself. With that said, let's crack on. Number 10. The People's Roles, Central Intelligence. Since the late 90s, The Rock has been known to the masses as the people's champion, and since those heady and foot-in-the-ass days, he's gone on to become one of the most bankable men in Hollywood. Honestly, it's insane at how utterly meteoric his rise has and still continues to be. And while you might immediately think of the Scorpion King when it comes to talking about bad CGI, that's not exactly what we're going to be talking about today, even though yes, he does look like he's been made out of rubber and is about as imposing as a hug from your kind nan. No, we're talking about another strange casting choice in his career, Central Intelligence, in which The Rock is digitally altered to appear large and in charge. However, in one scene there's a massive oversight, as when Dwayne is thrown across a gym and ridiculed for his weight like a giant meat frisbee, none of the superimposed skin around his face actually reacts to this motion. It makes the CGI job look completely low budget and creates a horrible image of two forces completely isolated from one another. It breaks the sense of immersion, and honestly, when you look at it, it's quite honestly terrifying. Number 9. The See-Through Splash, Air Force One. The late 90s was a true minefield for VFX, as unlike today, the industry was very much still in its infancy. Some films managed to blur the lines pretty well, but then others, well, it's kind of a horror show. Now, Air Force One relied a lot on practical effects, and for the most part it still holds up pretty well today, especially that cheesy line that is just so epically bad, "Get off my plane." However, there's one shot towards the end that happens during the climactic sequence which almost dragged the entire film and the plane down into the Caspian Sea. Once Air Force One hits the sea, it causes a massive splash of water which briefly rises in front of the plane. What wasn't noticed is that the CG wave shows the horizon behind it, not the crashing Air Force One. It's only actually on screen for a second, but is really hard to unsee once noticed. Number 8. Hanging around Batman and Robin. Right, I know this is not exactly a shock, but I'm not a huge fan of this film. I mean, sure, it's bright and colourful, but then again, so is Josh Brolin, and I hate that guy. I'm kidding, I love him, really. So I, along with many others, were very glad to see Nolan swoop in and effectively save this film franchise. However, in between all the bat nipples and strange angles on shots is one scene that quite literally makes audiences feel sick, and that's when Barbara Wilson is hurtling off a bridge just after a motorbike chase sequence, and luckily Robin catches her at the last moment and the day is saved. Audiences, though, weren't so lucky, as they were subjected to some terrible late 90s green screen action in the process. Here, Barbara is barely moving in the air because she's suspended there, but the backdrop behind her is shaking like crazy, and it creates a true sense of nausea. How anyone thought that these two shots would match up is mystifying, but somehow this made it to the big screen and every other home release since. Number 7. Is there really a dragon in that water? Dragonheart. Honest to God, it still boggles the mind that Sean Connery was once a CGI dragon, and not even his wizened acting chops were able to save the likes of Dragonheart, because while it certainly sounded the part, it looked like the underside of a mucky dog. So at one point, Dragonheart takes a dip in a lake, and it's here that the true limitations of the mid-90s become all too apparent. As he pops up, pretty much all of the water around his hulking mass just acts as if the dragon was never really there, which makes the visuals so utterly disappointing. I think the worst part is that no effort looks to have been made in order to try and address this issue. The flick was released 3 years after the likes of Jurassic Park and seems to have learned none of the lessons that film presented, namely that if the tech isn't up to scratch, shoot around it, get creative, don't just throw a load of rubber in a pond and expect me to be impressed because it sounds like James Bond. Number 6, The Impossible Hole, Toy Story. Toy Story was an absolute game changer, and Pixar truly pushed the bar with their first fully computer-generated feature film. Kids and adults adored the expressiveness of the cast and how everything seems at once so fantastical, yet so strangely grounded in reality. In fact, almost everything is perfect in Toy Story, from the character designs, the sense of scale and space, everything. Except the now infamous impossible hole. Yes, so this bit of logic melting happens when Woody and Sid's toys are attempting to save Buzz. Ducky and Legs need to distract Sid's dog by ringing the doorbell, so this means they need to drop out of the light fixture at the front of the house. However, when doing so, they pull it up. Now this should be impossible without the hole breaking or the light seal bending, but it just slides right on up even though it's clearly bigger. It's funny, isn't it, that we can accept talking toys and the like, but this light fixture sliding up is apparently a deal breaker. Gotta love the internet, right? Number 5, Padme's disappearing pair, Attack of the Clones. Oh dear God, here we are, the nadir of pointless CGI. Now, George Lucas can do whatever he wants with his films, but my lord, the amount of needless additional bits of guff in these flicks is almost ridiculous. Take, for example, the CGI pair in Attack of the Clones, which isn't just a waste of thousands of dollars and man-hours, but also is probably one of the most cringe-worthy love scenes between Anakin and Padme. So let's set the scene. After a long day spent listening to Anakin complain about sand and his dead mum and watching him surf on wildlife or whatever, the pair sit down and eat a different kind of pear. Now Anakin, because he is a show-off prick, floats the fruit over to her, and she stabs it with a fork, probably wishing that it was his face. However, here's the best bit. Because the pear is CGI, it means that Portman has to pretend to eat, and the animators had to fill in the blanks. And they forgot to render the last bit, as when it reaches her mouth, it basically disappears. Brilliant. I've not seen a woman make a fruit disappear in such a questionable manner since your mum willingly shoved a plantain up her sarlacc pit. It's awfully cringy, and also my one per list. Number 4, Sub-Keying, Jaws 3D. The original 1975 Jaws is a masterpiece of cinema, and really, it's one of those films that should have been left alone. However, Hollywood, much like the titular shark, smelled blood in the water and insisted on some sequels. You would have thought that after Jaws 2 failed to recapture the lightning in a bottle of the first, the franchise would just be left alone. However, once again, the powers that be disagreed, and another installment was vomited out, this time in 3D. For the most part, this isn't actually too bad. I mean, the film is absolutely god-awful, but there is another visual effect that is utterly jaw-dropping at how it was missed. At one point, our main cast are on a yellow submarine, which is shown to be turning through the water, and it's here that you can see the front of the vehicle has been keyed out, causing this ugly, ugly effect. Go soak your head, editors. That is a bad job. Even After Effects Premiere Pro does a better job than that, and that is infuriating to work with sometimes. Number 3. Where did the metal go? X-Men Apocalypse. While we might all be moaning about how lackluster Dark Phoenix was and how it's the end of an era for Fox, it's not the film that we're going to be taking to task today, as this time it is the turn of the equally cheesy but arguably much better version, X-Men Apocalypse. Now here for the most part, the visual effects are pretty fine. I mean, sure, it's a bit Saturday morning cartoon in places, but to be honest, the X-Men cartoon was absolutely banging. Anyway, we're here to talk about Magneto, who is known for his mastery of, well, it's supposed to be metal, but in one clip, all of the debris that he's launching at Apocalypse at the end of the film completely disappears. This is no magic. This would have been a render error, which would have probably been missed when VFX shots were being finalized, yet strangely, it's never been fixed in any of the other versions. Number 2, Manhattan's Glow, Watchmen. The Watchmen is quite possibly one of the most stylish movies of its time, and that is saying something, and it achieved a gritty look with some exceptional lighting and framing effects. However, it seems that Dr. Manhattan was another type of blue dong when it comes to his co-stars, as there are a few instances where the VFX team just simply forgot to balance his brightness. For the most part, he sits there like a nice blue lamp, providing some stellar mood lighting, but when he's talking to Night Owl in a few scenes, who lest we not forget is covered in reflective materials, he barely shows up at all. Everyone and everything else in the film is literally lit up by his bright blue glow when he's in close proximity, but not Night Owl, kinda like he's a black hole for the hero. Though strangely, you can still see Dr. Manhattan in Night Owl's goggles, so go figure.
Sorry to step in, Ben Murray here from WhatCulture.com, but we've just had a late breaking entry when it comes to the world of VFX errors. As Jules was putting together this video, a late contender has just arrived, thanks to Lucasfilm. Hot off the new Star Wars Rise of Skywalker trailer, there seems to be one huge mistake that was just totally missed. And no, it's not the fact that Count Dooku happens to not be in the sizzle reel that recaps the past 8 films, but the fact that Kylo's cape is totally missing. Coming to us from Reddit, thanks to user official GIF TV, they've pointed out that if you look ever so closely during what might be the final clash between Rey and Kylo, you'll see that in the reflection of probably the Death Star 2, Kylo is in fact capeless. Now, how does this happen? Well, the two are probably completely computer generated. That, or the cape was just missed in the final stages of the shot. It does happen, especially when you're trying to meet a deadline like a massive trailer to get everyone hyped. See, massive films like this are constantly chopping and changing until the very last minute, which means that a ton of VFX shots are going to be replaced constantly, sometimes even multiple times a day. Trust me, I've lived that life. So yeah, there's probably a version out there of the shot where Kylo hasn't got a cape at all, or maybe he's wearing his mask. We'll just have to wait to see until the film comes out late December. Anyway, enough from me, back to Jules.
At number 1, Raptors on the menu, Jurassic Park. It is genuinely remarkable that Jurassic Park holds up so well today. The way the cast are able to interact with the animatronics and computer-generated images alike is just amazing, it's believable, it's incredible. However, that doesn't mean that it's completely exempt from mistakes. In the sequence in which Alan, Ellie, Tim and Lex are trying to escape the park while being pursued by velociraptors, it looks like the trip is over as they become cornered in the main foyer. However, rather than being lunch, it turns out that the raptors themselves are turned into chow thanks to the T-Rex bursting in and taking a bite out of the would-be attackers. It's an exhilarating moment for sure, but in amidst all that chaos, there's one clip that when isolated is just really funny, as the raptor in the mouth of the T-Rex actually disappears. It's become internet legend that this was the result of the CGI not being up to the stresses that this shot would incur, and so was shortened and slotted in between some other clips at speed. Still, it is absolutely hilarious when you notice it. And there we go, those were 10 major VFX errors that you won't believe were missed. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and please let me know down below what you thought about it, as well as any others that you'd like to see in an upcoming list, as who knows, I might return to this subject further down the line. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, whatever you get up to, because you know what, friends, you deserve love, happiness, and success. I know I say it a lot, but I mean it every single bloody time. And if you need help achieving any of these, please speak to someone, because you're never alone, and together we are stronger. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.